Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1827. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Huntington, New York with a very special guest by the name of Jeff Alon. Hey, Jeff, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear? And are you ready to release the clutch?
I'm ready to go, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. We're going to have some fun today. But first, before I give you a proper introduction, what's one little thing that most people don't know about you, Jeff?
One little thing that people don't know about, I built 5 wine cellars about 7 years ago, right before I bought my transmission shop. And I opened up a company called Stellar Wine Cellars at that time. We did them all within 1 year. And it was an awesome experience working in these high-end homes and building one room and putting together these wine cellars. 3 of them actually were redos, but 2 of them were fresh builds with my design team, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I really love architecture. I love modern homes. My father was an architect, so he inspired me with the skill to see things and how to look at things. And I love going online and finding these crazy houses that they're over the top nuts. And these wine cellars that they build in some of these homes are just out of this world. And I saw one that was hidden. You go into part of their kitchen and you push this counter, and it was a stairway that went down into the floor, and the wine cellar was below the kitchen in this hideaway. It looked like a bomb bunker, but it was full of wine. I guess if the bombs are raining down, you want to go down and drink a lot of wine. Have you ever done something as wild as that?
We haven't done something like that. It's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was doing my research, YouTube is very powerful with all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. When I was doing my research to start building wine cellars, because, we got a phone call at the time when I owned a company called My Home Supervisor, and somebody said, "Hey, do you think you would know how to do this? We have one. We're having problems with it. We love the other work that you did for us." And we came in and, redid a conventional style space in a basement. Mm-hmm. But, while doing research about it, I've seen those, and they're so cool. Oh my God! I've seen one with a glass the
floor. Top where you can look down into it. Yes, I've seen that one too. Yeah, pretty cool. Well, my wife was funny when we saw that. We do have a pretty big crawl space between under our house. She goes, "Hey, we could do that." I'm thinking, I don't know if I drink enough wine to warrant that kind of expense. I'd want a bigger garage before I do that, but
for sure,
looks like fun.
These people spend $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 on one room in their home. When talking about those type numbers, it's all upper 1 percentile income people that have money to burn, per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good for them. I think it's cool. Well, let me give you a proper introduction, and we'll dive into your life here. Jeff Alon is the owner and operator of the New York Transmission Group and a producer and online talent for the Autolab Radio Show. I got to be on their show, got to experience that just a couple of weeks ago. It was so much fun, so cool. I want to say thank you to you and the team that made me feel so welcome. With over 40 years of experience in the automotive aftermarket service industry, Jeff is the show's in-house transmission and driveline expert. He grew up in the industry, starting out as a gopher, then installer, a rebuilder, a diag tech, and then a shop manager. He worked for Amco Corporation as a takeover specialist and then a director of operations for the North American Transmission Group, prior to becoming the owner of one of the busiest and well-known remanufacturing facilities on the East Coast. We'll be back in just a minute to talk more with Jeff about all the fun things he's doing and Autolab Radio Show. But first, a word from our sponsor, so give him a listen, and we'll be right back. Have a glass of wine while we're gone. One of your vehicle's interior surfaces that gets a lot of abuse is your dashboard. The sun beats down, and those damaging UV rays cause massive heat cycles, resulting in color changes and sometimes cracks. My friends at Covercraft have a great solution for you and for me. Their custom-tailored dash mats protect your dash from heat buildup while providing a stylish solution. You can choose from a variety of styles and colors, including carpet, suede mat, that's the one I have for my vehicles, Carhartt limited edition velour mats, and the Ultimat for trucks and SUVs. Another great benefit of your Covercraft dash mat is that it eliminates the harsh glare the sun produces from your dash to the inside of your windshield, which can make driving a hazard. Covercraft's Dash Mat Design Center is located in Arizona, where they know about harsh sun. I've got a special deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. Most people don't think about their collector car insurance until their annual premium becomes due. Well, why wait and see if there are better options for your beloved rides? I didn't. Did you know if you change carriers before your policy runs out, your insurance company has to refund you the unearned portion of your policy premium? I did my homework, I shopped around, and I found American Collectors Insurance. And that's who protects my Porsche Turbo. That's right, the one I call my Orange Crush. They've been protecting collector vehicles since 1976. I encourage you to call my friends at American Collectors Insurance. Ask them about their agreed value policy. And if your collector vehicle is on your regular auto policy, you will be shocked at the savings, not to mention the assurance, should something bad happen to your ride, that you'll get what your vehicle is actually worth. Give them a call today for a quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of Mark Green at Cars Yeah, American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. Automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. Give them a call today. All right, Jeff, so we are back, enjoying a nice little glass of vino, maybe some Adrobe Road Winery Racing Series wine. They make some really great wines. Let's take a little deeper dive into the corner here and talk about your life and your career. I want to first talk about your transmission business, the company you work at, and then we'll dive from there into Autolab Radio Show, which I got to be a participant in. It was so much fun. So, Jeff, let's talk transmissions. Grab the wheel.
Oh, transmissions. I mean, I've been doing them since I'm 15 years old. I'm a 58-year-old man now. So we're talking, 43 years now. The numbers just keep climbing.
Yeah, scary.
I did a couple of deviations during those years where I went out and, did my home supervisor thing for about 5 years and did some other stuff in the entertainment industry when I was a younger man. But the transmission industry, it's an extremely complicated component that the bottom line is you got to be perfect, and if you're not perfect and you don't have the right systems and procedures in place to be perfect, then you really give the money back after doing the work. So it's been something that I've done. It's ingrained in me. I've been doing it, again, since I'm 15 years old, and I know just about every aspect of the industry. I've done all the internal processes. Mark had mentioned, you mentioned it, Mark, from a gopher to an installer to a rebuilder to a manager to a shop technician, and then a director of operations for a larger corporation, AMCO corporate. And now I'm running my own business. And what I find is that, the key is that I'm in the shop and I am focused on the production and making sure that I fill in all the cracks and don't miss anything, because there's so much involved in the actual process of doing this work these days. Back in the day, we had 300-400 transmissions in stock, and a car would come in, and one would come out, and one would go in, and, it's out the door. Now, with the electronics and the way that these systems are designed, for the most part, we're remanufacturing the original transmission on about 85% of the applications that we work on. So it's a much different process. It's more of a take the transmission out, extract the component, get the car rollable again, push it out, put it into the lot, work on that component for a couple of days, get it ready, get the car back into the shop. And obviously you're utilizing your lifts like a restaurant. You keep movement, on those lifts. You don't let something sit there and wait for the transmission to be ready, because we're a very busy facility. I feel like I'm going on and on, but our clients are NYPD, New York City Transit, MTA, DOT. We're working on Con Edison vehicles. Those are all our like home body accounts.
Wow.
And then we're doing a lot of work for aftermarket service guys who run general repair shop who call us because we're a specialty facility. And then you've got the end user, which is the retail clientele. So there's many different arms that reach us and reach out to us for our help.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've focused on after all of these years is I don't really look for the money. What I look for is the relationship with the client and the relationship with my employees. And as long as you take care of those two components in my industry and where I am, the money just comes. And I look for win-win situations with clients. Back in the day, we needed all the work. Now I just need the right work. and it comes with the seasoning and knowing when somebody walks in if this is the right client for you, or if this is somebody who's going to appreciate what we bring to the table and not just think, how much money does it cost? Because that's not the main part of the process.
Well, transmissions are one of those things that you rarely have to fix. At least, I have vehicles that are pretty old. In fact, just today, I just went over and picked my wife's car up. It was having some service work done, and it's a 16-year-old vehicle. My car is 15 years old. My other car is 34 years old. So I keep cars a long time. I take really good care of them. So transmissions are one of those rare things. But you think about cars nowadays, the loaner car they gave us at the BMW dealership, had this, I think it was like a 7-speed transmission in it. And I was thinking, man, this is getting complicated. And you add all those electronics into the factor. So technicians these days, I know, and I know this because TechForce is a charity of mine, and the industry is getting harder and harder to fill these technician jobs. Is that something that you've encountered, trying to find good technicians that know what they're doing, that are great people to work for you? Or have you tend to just have people that have been with you for a long time, like you've been into this?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because, just as COVID hit, and I had purchased the company in 2016, February of 2016, I purchased the company from somebody that I used to run the place way back in the day. I managed it for him, and then it became a group, and it all moved into where we are now in College Point, right underneath the Whitestone Bridge. We talk about that all the time on the Autolab Show, the fact that even though so many facilities have closed down, in '89 there were 104,000 transmission shops in the United States, and that number has dwindled in a 7-year period. It went down to like 90,000, and
wow.
and that number continues to dwindle because only the strong survive, and you cannot operate. Most places cannot operate as just a transmission shop. So the Amcos of the world and the Lee Miles of the world have converted their models into, total car care now. It's not just a transmission shop. Now, us, on the other hand, we're a little bit unique because we've got this group. We've got this Reliable Transmissions and Lee Miles Transmissions of Flushing and K&B Transmissions of Floral Park. We've merged all three of these brands that have been around for 50 plus years. And because of that, and because of my experience, the whole thing fits so perfectly, where we've got lines of business coming from all three of these different components.
Yep.
And I haven't had to, quote unquote, turn into a general repair shop that does transmissions,
Nice.
which is not what I want to do.
Right.
I'm an old school transmission guy. That's what I want to run. I want to run a transmission shop.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Mark. 7 speeds. We're talking 10 speeds. We're up to 10-speed automatics now.
Yeah.
Ford and General Motors together spent about $500 million designing this 10-speed automatic that's in multiple applications on both sides. They call them frenemies, And it's just, why? Why do we need 10 speeds?
Is it because it's a smoother transition between the gears? Is that why they've done it?
I think it's really just EPA stuff and keeping up with the Joneses and who could make the best and the biggest and the most speeds. And I remember having a 10-speed Schwinn,
Oh, yeah.
bicycle.
Yeah, and then they went up to the 15 speed. Ooh, yeah. Very.
But, for us, every time they add a speed to an automatic transmission, it guarantees me another decade of business, so.
More complicated, more stuff to fix. That's the challenge, when they gave us the loaner vehicle. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in that car. I just think there's a lot of stuff to break. But it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. Let's talk a little bit about Autolab Radio Show. Tell our listeners what that's about. Why are you doing that?
Okay, so Autolab Radio has been on air. It's been a radio program on a New York City radio station for better than 40 years. Mm-hmm. Harold Walchuk was the originator of the show. Unfortunately, during COVID, he decided that he was going to retire. He just couldn't do it anymore. He's 85 years old. Been doing it for 45 since he was 40 years. Since he was a 45-year-old man. And David from Urban Classics, who is one of my close friends, and we've been doing business together for also since the 80s. I would consider him, a mentor of mine. He's a little bit older than me. We've known each other for many years, and he's been on that show for 30 plus years.
Wow.
I used to do it when I worked for the North American Group. I did it for them, and I did it, a couple of times for another company that I worked for. So David and I knew each other, and he invited me to come onto the show. And then, it just, I kind of drank the punch, and it's just something that is powerful. I think it's an educational show where we're trying to educate the public on some basic stuff, and we're also bringing a new dynamic to the show, which is a lot of different interesting people who talk about the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. And we're streaming live now on Facebook, cool. Autolab Radio. It's growing, and it's an entity that doesn't seem to want to die. And there's a bunch of people involved who are all very talented guys and a gal. And you guys have to check it out. It's something that, Mark even said it's just there's a magic potion to it that seems to really work. And we're just a bunch of mechanics, a bunch of technicians that are figuring out how to put some information out there that people want to hear.
Teaching old dogs new tricks, restoring an old show into creating a new show. And I'll put links to how you can access this show and find it. As I said, I was a guest on the show. It was really a lot of fun. I think we could have stayed and talked for hours and hours about car stuff. It was really a blast. Let me ask you this about a driving inspiration, a key mentor, somebody who was very influential and helpful in your life. Who would that have been?
So there's a gentleman named Michael DeMarco who I met him the first day I got into this industry. My dad bought a transmission shop in Brooklyn on Bay Parkway called Dr. Nick's Transmissions. My father was in the typography industry in Manhattan for many years, did well, but then him and his partner broke up. And my dad was always a car buff. Mm-hmm. He was always fixing his cars in the driveway. And then when he had the opportunity to go into a new industry, he said, let's check out this transmission thing. And Michael was somebody who was born and bred in the transmission industry, he was working in a transmission shop, at 8 years old. It was in his blood. There was transmission fluid in his blood, literally. And he taught me the ropes, he showed me the way things were supposed to be done. And he had a process in place that to this day, 45 years later, I still have never seen anybody who operates like this guy operated. He was the type of guy who while he was rebuilding a transmission, he knew what the components did. A lot of guys these days, or over the last 25 years that I've, run into and been involved with, they were parts changes. Why are you changing that part right now? They don't really know. They changed it because that's what the guy before them did, and Michael was this technically advanced guy who had a unique way of looking at our process and really had it down pat to the point where he just got it right. And he taught me how to be a great transmission technician. And then after that, it was my personality, I believe, and my ability to sell that gave me the other components needed to be successful in this industry. It's a rough industry, like I said before, you got to be perfect. And that's something that's very difficult to be, this world, No kidding. Yeah.
Well, it's a business, and that business side, the marketing side, the communication side you had, that is a rare combination of being technical and that. And that kind of leads to the next question here, and that is, how would you advise people that want to get into this industry? Is there some things that you would share with them that would give them some direction, focus?
That's funny that you asked, Mark. I mean, it's so far and few between guys that want to actually get their hands dirty these days, especially the young kids of the world. Back in the day, the automotive industry bred DIYs, do-it-yourselfers. And the reason why that happened was because, you could get underneath the hood of your 67 Oldsmobile 442 and change the water pump. It wasn't that difficult. You could change the fluid in your transmission, the engine. Nowadays, the level of technology that goes into these vehicles, for somebody to pop the hood who's a 19-year-old kid and try to understand what's going on there, it's virtually impossible. Now, what I would say is that the way I started in the industry was somebody just put a rag in my back pocket and handed me a broom, and gave me an opportunity to work in a shop. That was invaluable because, the opportunity to do that has taken me on a path that, I don't think I ever would have been able to achieve what I've achieved because I've seen opportunities and been able to grasp them. As far as I would think some basic education would be great. There are a bunch of schools out there, all over the country that teach automotive. I'll tell you, I was talking to David from Urban Classics today about he was hiring a new guy and the level of income that some of his technicians make is staggering.
Yep.
Like if you're a quality tech in the automotive industry and find the right place to work, you can make $150,000. You could make $200,000 a year. So why wouldn't you want to consider that if you were a mechanically oriented, brain function? If you had that mechanically oriented brain function, which it takes to be a good technician. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And as I mentioned, TechForce is a charity of choice here. They're the ones that help young people get into this industry. And if you love cars and you want to do this, why go to a 4-year college, get a degree that doesn't get you a decent job, and go out and have some fun doing what you're doing? It is really, they used to call it a blue collar job. Now it's a new collar job. It really is a great way to make a living. Plus you get to be around cars. Let's take a short break. We're going to thank our sponsors as we come back. I want to ask you about a big challenge you faced in your life. You're a guy who's been around for a while, so no doubt you've bumped up against a few things. So sit tight. Keep the seatbelts on.
I got a great one for you.
Keep it in gear. We'll be right back. What began as a charitable car show has grown into the world's greatest collector car auctions, raising over $133 million for charitable organizations to date. For nearly 50 years, automotive enthusiasts from all over the world have enjoyed the Barrett-Jackson collector car auctions, and I'm a huge fan. Regarded as the barometer of the collector car industry, their auctions are world-class lifestyle events where thousands of the world's most sought-after, unique, and valuable automobiles cross the block in front of a global audience, in person, on TV, or streamed online. Barrett-Jackson produces the world's greatest collector car auctions in Scottsdale, Arizona, Palm Beach, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and new for 2021, Houston, Texas. The excitement of Barrett-Jackson auctions is contagious, and a unique experience is not to be missed. And coming soon, something new for you Cars Yeah listeners. I'll be teaming up with Craig Jackson on the first ever Barrett-Jackson podcast, coming to your mobile devices every week. Listen here on Cars Yeah and check out the Barrett-Jackson website for unique details on this new, exciting podcast that I'm very proud to be a part of. And be sure to visit barrettjackson.com today. Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auctions. I've discovered Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented Linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. Be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com. All right, Jeff, so let's talk about that challenge. Tell us something that you bumped up against, something that's really challenged you, and more importantly, how did you overcome it? What was the lesson learned?
Okay, so we had a client come in who was a middle-aged woman with a 23-year-old Honda Accord. It was last year. It was a 21-year-old Honda Accord. She had bought it brand new in the beginning of 2000, and she drove it back and forth to work for 21 years. And the car had 303,000 miles on it. And she drove up to the shop, and, my brother had talked to her on the phone. She came in. I looked at the car. I looked at her. We sat down in the office. We talked a little bit about, what Honda had told her. She was just at the dealership, which happens to us a lot. Customers go to the dealer. The dealer tells them they need a transmission. The number is astronomical these days. And she just didn't want to put $6,500 into her 2000 Honda Accord. So it made sense that she ended up by us. Yeah. And we do those transmissions. We do a lot of them and have a lot of success with them. It's a straightforward build for us. We know exactly what needs to be done to that unit and to make it right. And I learned a huge lesson from this car that is so invaluable. So, the first thing I said to her was, "Are you sure you want to fix this car?" That's my sales pitch. I'm like, "Are you sure you want to fix this car? It's got 300,000 miles on it. It's 20-something years old. For the most part, these cars' end of life is around 300,000. I just need the car for 2 more years. Please, please, please. I'm retiring in 2 years. I don't want to buy another car. I love my car." Blah, 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 blah. I was like, "Listen, I want it on the record that we don't recommend this." And she said, "No, but I want you to fix it." So I said, "Okay, listen, we can rebuild these transmissions for about $3,500. When we take the transmission out, we open it up, we make sure we see what needs to be done. And we also are checking all the externally related parts like the mounts and the axles and flywheels and starters and all the stuff that's related to the transmission. We're checking when we take the transmission out." "Okay, great, do it." So we take the trans out, we see what's wrong with it, we go through the overhaul, we see all the mounts in the car are bad, we sell her a complete mount kit. The job ends up being $4,000. We put it all back together, car goes out the door. She calls me in a week, "It's no good." So I say to myself, okay, it's no good. Okay. Like it happens in my industry, in my world. Sometimes we have to do it over again. It's part of the process. So sometimes when you get a car in with 300,000 miles on it, it has reached end of life, even though you don't see that it's reached end of life.
Right. Yeah.
And so she brings the car back. I go for a ride with her. I'm like, "You're right. It's no good. Please just give us a little bit more time and we'll get it straightened out." We get the car into the shop and I know exactly what needs to be done. We need to find a rebuildable core for this thing with low mileage so we can build that unit and put it in the car because this one is not going to be fixed. So we realized that. I find a unit in Delaware. I drive from New York to Delaware. I buy the transmission. It had 52,000 original miles on it. We go through our rebuild process. We don't cut any corners. We put it in the car, and it worked. And I made the mistake of being honest with her and telling her exactly what we needed to do to resolve the issue. And she said, "But you didn't tell me that you..." I said, "Listen, when we have a problem with a car, we do whatever it takes to fix the problem. And since you already had a warranty and it was my responsibility to make the car right, I did whatever I needed to do so." So she was upset, but she took the car. The car drove perfectly.
Now, why was she upset if the car was fixed?
Because she felt like I took the heart of her car and changed it without mentioning it to her.
Gosh.
That was the big deal. Yeah. That was how. Yeah,
wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, if the car had some kind of intrinsic value, I could kind of get that. But come on, it's a 20-year-old.
But she was so connected to this vehicle.
Yeah. You took the liver out and put a transplant in.
You didn't tell me you took my firstborn.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, but
very interesting.
The moral of the story here is a couple things I heard you say, Jeff. One is you knew at the beginning this was not the right thing to do. End of life, this is going to be a problem, but you did it. And then when there was a problem, you went above and beyond instead of "Here's your money back, we're done with you," or "Sorry, tough." To drive to Delaware, it's just incredible. And that's what a good mechanic does for a customer. They make it right.
I'm not done.
You're not done?
Let me finish the story.
Okay.
Let me finish the story. So about a month and a half goes by and I get a letter from DMV, New York State DMV, that there's a case been put up against me. And this was the first time in my 40 years that I had any kind of issue like this. And the DMV inspectors came down and I had to give her all her money back.
What?
Yes. I gave her all her money back.
Wow.
At the end of the day. So I did all of that and gave her money back.
Wow.
So that was just what you said to me. What was an experience? Now, what did I learn from that?
Yeah.
I learned that just doing what you think is right sometimes isn't the answer. You know what I mean? I should have had a little bit better communication level with her and told her what my plan was before I did it. Mm-hmm. And she really held my feet to the fire. And it's an amazing lesson, but it's part of what I said to you, that we got to be perfect in this industry. And there's no, you know what I mean?
Well, the communication word is key. And I've always said, I ran a business for 20 plus years, and I always told everybody, communication, proper communication is the key to our success, and the lack of it is the reason we fail. And we were selling products to people, and every time we didn't communicate properly with those customers and we had a problem, it was a problem. And it just got worse and worse. So yeah, correct communication. It works in business, works in life, and it works in marriages. You just got
100%.
You just got
100%. And I'm definitely married to my business, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's a great story. Well, great story, but tough story. So there you go. Well, I'm going to ask you if there's been a special vehicle in your life, Jeff, some kind of a vehicle that has great meaning for you. What was that, and why? Why is it special?
So my first car drove into my father's Dr. Nick's transmission shop on Bay Parkway. The woman drove in. It was a 70 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme convertible, red with a black top with Keystone Classics on it. It was gorgeous, the car. I fell in love with it the second I turned around and saw it. And the woman came in and she drove into the shop. It was a long bay. It was a long single bay facility where you would drive in, and there was a driveway through the whole shop, and then all the lifts were off to the right. Mm-hmm. She drove right into the middle of the shop. I was working on the second or third bay, and I looked over at the car, and my heart melted, and I started looking at the car. And, you know, my father came out at the time, and he was, you know, talked to the lady, and he told her what it would cost to fix it, and she was, you know, she just didn't have the money to fix it, and she had no reverse, so she couldn't put it in reverse and back out, so we bought the car.
You're in here, you can't leave, sorry.
So I had that car, and I fixed the transmission, and I did some other work to the motor, and I drove this car like it was nobody's business. And, you know, I had my first love in that car, and, you know, my first girlfriend, and we used to, it had air conditioning in a convertible, so we used to drive the car out, top down to Jones Beach in the morning, all summer long, and then on the way home, when you were all hot, put the top up and put the air conditioning on. So it was just, I was just, you know, 70 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme convertible with 350, and it was awkwardly fast for a 4,200 pound car, and I just, you know, I fell in love with the car, and then, you know, that story went on and on. But I have to tell you, what a great car. When I see one these days, I saw 67 442 this morning, and I was like, wow, what a nice car. It was just,
I was going to ask that 442. That those things, some of those, they had scoops up towards the front of the hood. If I remember that. Yeah.
Air intake, sure.
Yeah. Pretty darn cool. That's sweet. Sweet ride. Well, I'm going to crawl into your head, Jeff. If you woke up tomorrow and you were manifest as a vehicle, this isn't what you want to be, but this is how you perceive yourself in a vehicle. What would that vehicle be, and more importantly, why?
You know, I always had an infatuation with Carroll Shelby, and I got the opportunity to see that movie Ford versus Ferrari, and that Ford that they built, that, you know, when Carroll Shelby jumped in the car and had Henry Ford Jr. in the car, and they did that scene where he cried at the end of the ride.
Oh, in the GT40?
Yeah, the GT40.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that scene. Everybody said, oh, well, that didn't really happen. I could see, because I've seen people cry from speed in my time, you know, and I would love to take a ride in a GT40 with Carroll Shelby. That would be my thing, you know. I just have a feeling that it would be like a life-changing event. And I had so much respect for Ken Miles in the movie, and sad for what happened to him right after sad for what they put him through, for what Ford put him through.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't a company man. He was far from a company guy, wasn't he? He was his own guy. I'll tell you, those cars, I've sat in real ones. I've had friends who've owned real ones and raced real ones in vintage racing, but I got to drive a Superformance GT40 that Lance Stander, who's been a guest on my show here, builds down there in Orange County. And they build Shelby continuation cars, both versions of the Shelbys, but they also build a GT40. And I got to drive that thing, and it is as close to driving a real old race car that you can get, only better, because the brakes are better, the engine's better, everything's better on it. It's insane.
Yeah, they tightened it all up. With the electronics and all of the later technology.
It still feels like an old car, having driven lots of old cars as I have. So, I think that's pretty cool. Now, let me ask you this. All great people have figured out that the secret to life is giving back to others. What are some ways that you've found to give back to others in the automotive sector? Obviously, you employ people. That's a huge one.
Yeah, I have to tell you, during COVID, we had to lay off 70% of our crew, and we realized that the 70% we laid off, a few of them were technicians, a couple of them were office personnel, but we just realized that we were keeping these people at that time because that's who was there. And COVID gave me a huge opportunity it gave me a swift kick in the you-know-what. And I figured out how to finally get successful in this business literally during last year. It took me 5 years, which is not abnormal when you buy a business. But, with the experience I had, I thought I was going to hit the ground running and start making money, and it just didn't happen. And what I was able to do was to give back to the new people that came in that needed my help. We had a couple of 3 different employees, new ones that are still with us now, that were down and out, and one guy showed up. A quick story. We were interviewing and had so many people come in and out after we laid everybody off to try to find the right fit. And one guy shows up with all of these tools, and he came and he worked for 3 days and he disappeared. I said to my brother, I said, this guy doesn't answer any of my messages. I don't know what happened. He's either in jail or, God forbid, he got hit by a car. So a guy shows up and he looks me in the eye, and he didn't have any tools. His tools, believe it or not, were in Mexico, and he couldn't get them out. And he desperately needed a job. He looked me in the eye, and this guy previously had come in and taken this transmission out of this box truck, this Isuzu box truck. And we built the unit, and he never came back to put it back in. And I was like, hey, I didn't have anybody to put it in. So I was going to have to get under the truck and do it myself. So this guy shows up one day, and he says, I need a family, and I need a home. And I just looked him in the eye, and I had this feeling, and I said, you know what, take that guy's tools right there, put that transmission back in the truck. And in 3 hours, it was done. And because I gave him that opportunity, because I just had a feeling and a belief in what he said, like he's one of my key employees now, and we keep doing, and we bend over backwards for our employees. Like I said in the beginning, it's about the employees and their being good with their environment that they're in, and it's about the customers in a win-win situation. And if you have that ingredients, you have a perfect salad to be successful in my industry.
No, it's great. And I've always said that the most important person in a business is your employee. It's not your customer. Because without great employees, you won't have any customers. So they're so important. That's a great story. How about a book? Is there a book that you've read you'd like to share that you really enjoyed?
A long time ago, during one of my hiatuses from the industry, I was working for a company called, what was the name of the company? It was a staffing company in Manhattan. I went to work and I put the suit on, which didn't work for me. I put the suit and the tie on, and when I started
tie
hearing,
things, they choke you. I don't like those ties.
When I started hearing the LIRR doors open and close in my sleep, I knew it was time to get the hell out before it killed me. During that time, it was about a year's worth of my life. I read a book that I saw somebody reading on the train called The Power of Now. And it was, the guy, I can't think of his name right now, but the guy who wrote the book was homeless and destitute, and came up with this process and how to achieve some basic what do I call it? Some basic, sanity from this insane life that we all live. And And it was very powerful. It helped me take a couple steps back and take some breaths and don't overreact, because I have a very intense personality. When I'm at work, I want to get stuff done, and I'm focused on getting it done and getting it done right, because that's the only way we can be successful. So it gave me the ability to, take a step back and, breathe a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's by Eckhart Tolle and Troll.
Yeah, Eckhart Tolle.
Tolle. Yeah, and the subheading is A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. So yeah, it's the #1 bestseller. It's a great book, and I'll make sure I put that on Jeff's show notes page along with all the other great books listed and suggested by my inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Nice book to read. Definitely worth your time. We're going to take one last break. When we come back, we're going to go on the ultimate drive. So sit tight, Jeff. We'll be right back. Have you looked under your hood recently? The average car today has more than 70 computers and 100 million lines of code. Today and tomorrow, being a professional technician requires an understanding of technology, computers, and electrical systems that are highly advanced and very complex. Cars Yeah! is honored to support TechForce Foundation as our charity of choice. Their efforts to help young people pursue a technical education and a fulfilling career as automotive techs is the key to an inspired life. Through scholarships, grants, and good old-fashioned hands-on experiences with vehicles, TechForce and Cars Yeah! are working together to connect young people with viable careers. Join us and learn more by visiting techforce.org today. All right, Jeff, we're going on the ultimate drive. That means you get to pick the vehicle, you get to pick somebody to go with, or maybe a few people. It's up to you. Could be people living or deceased, or a combination. So what are you going to be in? Who are you going to be driving with? And where are you off to?
It's funny because we already kind of talked about it. But, these days, aside from the Oldsmobile convertible, I own a 69 Z28 convertible. 69 Z28. It's not a convertible. It's a coupe. It's an original W33, X33 chassis. It's the real deal car that they designed the new version of the Camaro after, and it's something that it's been sitting in my garage in Valley Stream for like 5 years. We took it all apart. We started putting it back together. Then I bought the shop, and it just ended up, taking a back seat to priorities in life. But I would love to be in that 69 Z28 with it all back together, running the original 302 with the M21 trans, and just cruising down the Pacific Coast Highway with my buddy who I own the car with, Brian McDonald, somebody that I know for 40 plus years. We've been talking about getting this car done. Back in the day, I lived for a little while in California, and so did my sister. So I spent some time out there and saw the beauty and the amazing coastline. And I drove down the PCH. I drove down Route 1 is the California to San Francisco, if I remember correctly. I've driven that drive a couple of times, and I'd love to take that Camaro and just go for a blast. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I'll tell you, I got to take my driving test in a 74 Z28 Camaro.
Great.
Yeah, a neighbor up the street had a Chevy dealership and brought it home, and he said, "Look, Mark, I'll let you take your driving test in this, and if you pass, you can keep the car for a week." Now, I think he had in his mind that my parents might be buying me a car or something like that. Well, there's no way they were gonna buy me a car like that. But it was I go, okay, I'll take that. And I remember it was bright, kind of a yellow gold color with a big Z28 on the hood. And back in those days, you're a little 15 and a half, almost 16-year-old kid. You get in line. I was there first thing in the morning with my mom to take that test, and the guy comes out with a clipboard and looks at the car, looks at me, and then gets in. He goes, "This your car, kid?" And I said, "No, sir, my neighbor loaned me his car." And he goes, "He loaned you a brand new Z28? And I said, "Yeah." And he told me if I passed, I get to keep it for a week. And he looks at me and he goes, "You better pass." And I did. So there you go.
Good for you.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. Well, Jeff, you've taken me on an awesome ride, as I knew you would. And I want to thank you again for having me be a guest on Autolab Radio Show. Thank you for being a guest on Cars Yeah! Before I let you go, would you offer some final words of wisdom, maybe a mantra, a quote, something to kind of leave us with on a positive note?
I just wanted to say, Mark, this has been a great experience. When you were on the show, I was like, I don't think we've had a better guest.
You're too kind.
You were smooth as silk, and it was an awesome experience to meet you. And when you offered this opportunity, I don't know, I think I emailed you during the show.
You did.
That's
yeah.
how exciting I was.
You're Johnny on the spot. Good job.
Yeah. That's my that's my operating speed. I mean, when somebody texts me, when somebody gets in touch with me, tries to get in touch with me, and I see that I missed a call or missed a text, I am the type of person that is an immediate responder, and it's helped me develop the relationships that I've developed over these years. Most of my customers have been doing business with me for umpteen years. David is a good example. You know, if you're going to get into business and you want to be serious about it, my recommendation would be, if you're going to take it seriously, then go out and get the business. Don't wait around for it to come to you. Go out and get it. And then when it's there for you, treat it like it's gold and make sure that those relationships are strong. And if you operate that way and respond to people when they get in touch with you, you know, and don't put it to the side, and then they right away say, you know what, this guy is serious about what he does. Let's do business with him. So I think that's one of the things that would be something that I would recommend to people. You know, don't be a selective responder. When somebody gets in touch with you, you show them the respect to respond. And that's what I do. So,
yep, it's a way to be successful. And what are some ways that people can learn more about Autolab Radio Show and New York Transmission Group?
Autolab Radio is on Facebook. The Autolab Radio Show is our website. We have multiple platforms now. We're opening up a YouTube channel. We're on Instagram. Just give us a little bit of time, but I'm telling you, our presence on the internet and what we're doing now is brand new, even though the show is 40 years old. In reference to the show, in reference to the business, my nytransmissiongroup.com. You can contact us if you have a need, or if you even just need a little bit of information. I tell people all the time. People call me all the time. Just, hey, what do you think about this? And if I don't know the answer, which for the most part, I hope I do. If I don't know the answer and it's something later model that needs some research, we will spend the time that it takes to get you the information that you need. If you have a problem, we're here to solve it.
There you go. I'll make sure all of this is on Jeff Alon's show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Jeff, Alon. Alon is his last name, and you will find his page right there. Jeff, thanks for being so generous today with your time and expertise and for sharing your life's lessons with us. Until you and I talk again, as long as my transmission is working, I'll see you down the road.
Be well, Mark. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.